Recorded.
Hey, good morning. Hello, everyone. Let's give it one more minute, then we can actually get started. I see that people are still joining.
Sounds good.
All right, somebody has to mute it. I think there's a lot of noise. All right, so 3 minutes past the code. I think we can get started.
Okay. Let me get caught up here. Okay. Yes, welcome everyone. Okay. Yeah, so a reminder that the antitrust policy applies to all meetings of the Linux Foundation. If you have any questions on that policy, please reach out and or consult your legal counsel. We have made the switch over to the permanent home for this meeting, which will be on Zoom through the LFX platform. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Please join the Etherpad. I can post that again in the chat. 1 second. Yeah, so please join the Etherpad and help take minutes and record your attendance. Okay. So the agenda, I just discussed those. I'll discuss the minutes and action items shortly. We'll discuss one summit. We'll have SIG status, and then I'll discuss the infrastructure and migration process status. Okay, so let's see if we have quorum.
We don't have any voting today, Kurt. I think probably it's okay to skip it today.
Yeah, just meeting minutes. But let's see. Been 1, 2, 3. Looks like we don't quite have, unless I'm missing someone. Let's see. Well, let me just run through real quick. It's Google, Wind River, we have Nokia, Deutsche Telekom, Bernard is here. Don't see Vodafone.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Sorry, who was that?
It's Ian Wilkinson.
Ah, thank you. Okay. Oleg, Equinix.
Good afternoon, I'm here. Yep.
That was okay. Yeah, let's see. I think that gets us there already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's see, we need one more. Intel, do we have?
Yes,
Sundar?
Sundar here.
There's 10. And Tim Fabrizio. Erickson, we have, oh, I already, yeah, we have Peter. CASA Systems, Eric. Jane. Let's see, Jane. Daniel, Bell Canada. Let's see. We already have Sandeep.
Yes.
Sandeep's here. Okay, perfect. And there's quorum. So yes, great. And I'll get everyone else's attendance, or please mark yourself in the Etherpad. I'll do that as we go through the meeting. So let's move on. So yes, I distributed the minutes of the last meeting, the September 1st meeting before this meeting. Were there, any changes has everybody had a chance to review and any changes? If not, can I get a motion to approve?
Yeah, I call for the motion to approve.
Seconded.
That was Sandeep.
Yeah, seconded.
All right. So those not in favor, please speak up. Okay, minutes are approved. Let's see, next up, we did have one action item for last meeting, and that was for me to move the community process document to the Nephio wiki, and I have completed that. Let's see, next up, we have, yes, the event. I have updated this slide. Kenan, would you like to discuss this?
Yeah, so before we go into the event item, so can you talk a little bit about this whole the LF tool migration that has been done? And I think I want to make sure that everybody is able to log in, and if they have issues and stuff like that and don't having the invite, because I saw that like a couple of emails came out. And can you please just talk to them, like what is the step to validate or verify that they are part of the system?
Sure, we can do that. That's the next slide. Yeah, so we have completed the mass import and migration of the list of everyone as of the current snapshot, and migrated that into LFX. The committee, which is an entity that allows us to do things like set up meetings and so on in LFX. So the committee has been created. I have verified the members, and we have set up a permanent recurring TSC meeting, and it has been, the invite has been sent out. If you have not received that invite, please let me know. It's more than likely that that your name slipped through the cracks and we were not, you weren't part of the mass migration. I did send that link to both lists, so hopefully we did get everyone, but if you had problems or you know of problems, please let me know. So the next on the list will be the SIG committees, and I'll be exporting those lists and doing the mass import for those, and then we can get the committee set up and the recurring meetings set up for those the SIG committees. And I guess I'll go ahead and discuss from the marketing side, the LF marketing side, the LinkedIn and Twitter handles have been set up, and so you can jump on those and spread the news. Any questions on that? Okay. So, Kenan, would you like to jump back to events?
Let's go to the slide number 9.
9. Okay.
Right. So on the ONE summit last time, we took an action item to go and actually.
And that's okay. I mean, like those kind of things like that. I'm just thinking from an app migration perspective.
Somebody has to.
I am helping you that,
Hey guys, can you please make your phone?
consulting.
I think I was like a Danny. All right. So on the ONE summit last time, like we took an action item to confirm the space. The space has been secured and confirmed. And we could not get like all 2 days because of the logistics of the location and other issues. And right now we are able to secure like November 16th. So this would be almost like not a full day because it would be after the keynote. So keynote, I think their expectation is that everyone to attend the keynote. So right after the keynote, we would have a room of like where we can accommodate at least 50 people in it. And the goal of this particular meeting, I think, as we mentioned, that we would have like this community call, like a release one planning, and any presentation that the community members want to present it. It will be a proposal of a particular, like items related to the release one planning, or generally about the community. And I think.
So listen, guys, it's 412.
Yeah,
I'm gonna think about this a bit more, but and I'd like to understand a little bit more how the VMware migration is impacted by this, but I think it's.
I think as an admin, can you mute everyone? Is it possible?
They're probably gonna maybe the same.
I think you should. I think
a
somebody
little
is.
bit by the fact that they're.
Hey,
I
Daniel,
think-
I can hear all your secrets, man. Okay, thank you. All right, so so we would use it as a developer summit where we can have open discussion on areas that SIG groups want to discuss on the release one planning. And we can also use this for any presentation that community members want to present. And again, if you go to this wiki page, it's not fully populated now. So what we are looking for is that each SIG groups, if there's a specific agenda you want to hit within this particular time frame, especially brainstorming items around the release one planning and stuff like that, please go ahead and actually update this wiki after talking to your SIG group. And with a specific topic, just put the topic you really need it. Then we will actually go and update it with like a specific time slot and stuff like that. And from a TSC members, like if you have additional suggestions around like what we can actually cover here, even if it is a topic of TSC. So let's have that actually included in this wiki. Then we can reorganize that within that time that we would be having on that day to shuffle it. But I think the important goal of this particular meeting is that we would have it virtually as well. And hopefully we can project it from the room. So people who could not join, we will have it virtual, but we pretty much encourage everybody to actually have a physical presence here so that we can make progress on the release one item. Now, I think before this particular time frame, there would be multiple demos and stuff like that will happen in the SIG group. So it would help to actually clearly see what is going to be in the release one as well. So let's use this meeting to actually plan for our release one. So John, I think you have your hand raised. Please go ahead.
Yes. Is the intention for this 3/4 day to be primarily working meetings and discussions? Again, you have presentations there. If there are presentations, should the SIGs be deciding like what presentations are going to be done? What is this going to be more informal as opposed to like a program committee that people have to submit a CFP for? Has that been figured out yet, or we're still working on that?
I think this is why I'm requesting people to suggest the topic that they wanted to come and present it. And if a SIG group wanted to present like a specific areas, and please spell out, but at least each SIG group, we should have some brainstorming session. Think of like a birds of feather sort of a session where the release one items can be discussed, or even after release one, like the things that are related to our community can be discussed. That is definitely we can do it. But if it is we have to make sure that this is not a marketing presentation. This is more aligned towards Nephio community, and mainly if we can focus on release one, so that as a community we can make progress. So propose the presentation, and we can make a final decision depending on, because we only have it's a 1 day, but it's not a full 1 day. So we have to make sure that we can accommodate everybody within that time frame. So I think if I divide this like in a bigger chunk, think of like almost 50% for brainstorming session. The remaining 50% we will have it for formal presentation or formal things that we need to bring in and discuss over there, right? So we can divide that like a part of the stuff. Go ahead, John.
One more question. Will there be one big room, or will there be breakout rooms for different groups or SIGs?
This is the only one room we have. There is no breakout room. Unfortunately, the space is like very, very limited, and we actually have to pay a higher price to get this room. So I think there's not much space available. But again, the second day, I think informally we can actually meet and discuss and stuff like that. But we don't have like a one dedicated room on second day. We can even stay on 17 if the people are interested in. Even 15, we can have like informal discussion. But I think Linux Foundation is a little bit worried that we pull like 50, 60 people, then there's not much people attending the other talks. So they're trying to balance it out. So that is why we see that 16th, it's after the keynote, because we don't want people to miss the keynote, right?
Kandan,
yeah, go ahead, Sana.
Oops, I'm so sorry. I didn't raise my hand first. Kandan, I was looking at the agenda for the One Summit yesterday, and I saw a lot of the members who are within our Nephio community are also speakers. And of course, most of them are on the slots on the November 15th. So those people, I don't know the full agenda yet in our contributions and participations, they will be missing from this workshop during the time when they're presenting. And some people from our community might be listening to them. So the model of this workshop is it kind of informal in which people are coming in and out, or we have to be sitting there and be actively participating for certain durations. I was just trying to come up with a proposal that we identify everyone's responsibilities towards this from various SIGs as well.
That is absolutely a great point, Sana. I think that is why we want to finalize the agenda by, let's say, next week, and next to follow up TSC call by first week of October, let's say, and that would help us to actually make for people to make the decisions around like which section of the discussion they want to participate. But I think from engagement perspective, it would be nice to have everybody involved. We did actually consider 17 as one of the choice. The challenge with 17 is like, especially I think what I heard from some of the people in our community is that people need to travel back to their places, and right, especially with the constraints around the travel. And I think they had a concern, especially European friends, that they had a concern that they need to travel back to the country. So with that in concern, like that's why we picked the 16, and I think I agree with your point, and we can slot it like such a way that if there is some Nephio related presentation is going on, maybe we can actually have some sort of a brainstorming session during the time, then adjust the agenda accordingly.
Yeah, that would be perfect, Kandan. And I have a feeling that 16th is a lot better than 15th, because most of the agenda that I have seen so far is basically concentrating on the November 15th, which yes, surrounds the Nephio topics, but we should dig into that as well.
Sure, I totally agree, and I would take your help in actually shaping this agenda for the 16th. But again, the reason why we didn't pick 17 is that a lot of people will leave, and then it is very hard to organize this particular meeting.
Yeah, absolutely, Kandan, makes total sense.
Sure. And if anybody has any other suggestion, remember this is especially TSC members and SIG members, like if you have any suggestion on topics and stuff like that, and I think we are expecting each SIG to come back with a specific proposal of what you want to discuss within this time frame, and also like demos and stuff like that. If you could organize it during this time, I think it would be helpful for all the community members. Okay. Any question, any suggestion before we move on? And again, I think our intention is to shape this agenda by next TSC call. So if you have a proposal, feel free to go and add into this wiki, and then we can use that for the discussion.
Yeah, hi, this is Ronnie. Just wanted to remind everyone that right after the One Summit, there's the Linux Foundation Networking Developer and Testing Forum. It's co-located in the same place. It just takes place right after that on the 17th and 18th. There will be tracks for LF networking projects, but there's also kind of a general interest track. So if folks are interested, and there's a lot of, I can tell there's a lot of interest in Nephio in the various LFN projects like ONAP, MCO. So if you're interested in presenting or discussing with the LF networking communities, that could be a good chance to submit a session to this event. And I can drop the link to the event session submission in the chat.
Thank you, Rani. Appreciate it for the heads up. All right, so if there are no questions, so let's move to the next agenda item.
Kandan, I have one more question. It's a little sidetracked, but I thought maybe it's a good idea when we are on the One Summit discussion. So as I said, I looked at the agenda, and a lot of people are actually touching on the Nephio subject within their talks, which is a very good idea. And we informally talked on LinkedIn. There is a person from Interdynamics, I don't know if she's on the call today, it's Vanessa, who's planning on touching on the Nephio project in some way. In my talk, I have a plan to touch on some angles of the Nephio as we are intersecting with the other standards and cross-pollination of the Linux Foundation project. Do you think it would be a good idea for the potential speakers who are actually going to talk about Nephio to gather and brainstorm on certain messages that we should communicate for moving our message forward, or trying to be on the same page on what we are bringing to our community and audience?
That is definitely a good idea. And the other thing is like, I can take this as an action item, I think, between me and Kurt. So there is a pitch deck that we have been using from an Nephio community perspective. And we can upload a PPT version of that deck. And if anybody want to use it and present it, and I think they can actually feel free to use it for a consistent messaging perspective. And there is a PDF version actually available. I think it's as a recording, and so we can get you actually guys a pitch deck that can be used. And I think people can add further stuff and from their point of view and stuff like that. But there is a pitch deck that we can share.
Yes, I wanted that just for the consistency of the messaging across how we are representing our thought process around the project, which should actually be very similar across these various talks. So I look forward to that, Kandan, from you and Kurt, and make sure that we are aligned on that.
Fantastic. I think I appreciate that. And I think this week or by Monday, I think we will upload it and send it out to the distribution list so that everybody knows that where it is located.
Sounds perfect, Kandan. Thank you.
Kurt, let's discuss offline, and I think let's have a cleanup deck that we can share with the community.
I have taken that down as an action.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Any other questions before we move to the next agenda item? I think let's go to the slide number 12.
Oh, 12. Oh, that's just the meeting reminders. There we go.
All right, so this is for the SIG group to provide an update. As we discussed on the last call, we would like the chair and the co-chair of each SIG to provide update on every TSC call. And we also welcome, not only the updates, but going forward, we also welcome actually the SIG groups, or if any community member, it doesn't need to be a TSC member or a SIG member, if any community member want to share like a thought process or something related to the Nephio community, or anything like a proposals or anything like that you want to bring into the TSC for the discussion, you can do that as well within the SIG group. But if there's something you want to pop it up to the TSC level, feel free to suggest the topic to me and Sana. Then we can help you guys actually to put that into the agenda. Okay, so for today, and that applies to the SIG group as well. If you want to have some sort of a presentation to be done on the TSC call, so propose the topic at least like a couple of days or before the TSC meeting, so that we can put that into the agenda. So with that, SIG group, please provide an update. Let's start with the SIG group in a talk.
Can I ask first about what you just mentioned? What would be the guidelines then for presenting at the TSC level versus the SIG group? I think people might be a little bit confused sometimes as where they should make their presentation. What kinds of presentations would be applicable for the TSC?
That is definitely a great question. I think if it is particular to a SIG group, and if you are proposing any code changes or context with respect to the SIG group, please go ahead and actually do directly with the SIG group, especially the technology discussion related to the SIG, directly present to the SIG group. But if you are proposing something community level, aspects of a proposal, and then you can actually suggest that topic to the TSC chair and co-chair, which is me and Sana. And then if we feel like that topic need to be discussed with the SIG, then we will provide that proposal. But if you feel that this is the right topic to bring it up in a community level, we can discuss with that person and then bring it up into the agenda. So, but again, I think more topics to flow through it. I think we can shape it, but at least this is the guidelines for right now. Hopefully that answers your question.
Oh, yes, exactly. Yeah, I would say the rule of thumb is first try in the SIGs. And if it really doesn't fit in any of the SIGs, then the TSC is the more general place.
Sure, I think makes sense. Yeah. So with that, let's go to the SIG and NEDAR, please. Please go ahead. Sana or
yes. I'll take up for the network architecture update. And Kaushik, please chime in if you have additional ideas to supplement on this update here. So up until now, Google shared a document in the community for the user journey for release phase 1. Kaushik and I have met multiple times internally to sync on our ability to structure the incoming request for requirements and the request for long-term roadmap from various community members. And we jointly decided that our focus should be in the immediate next few meetings to finalize our requirements and user stories for version 1. And then we can continue to take all the input about the user stories that are a bit further out for the long-term roadmap and consolidate that in one document. So we have started drafting a document with a lot of inputs from Kaushik in the Nephio community, which is titled as Goals, Nephio Goals, user stories and requirements. And the first draft of the document we are trying to share this week, which will be a living document and open to contributions from the community. That's about gathering the requirements from the users for the requirements for phase 1, the version 1, sorry, and the long term. And to be more proactive in getting that input from everyone who is actually attending our meetings, we have also created an input form in which we are asking all the TSC members and all the community members to actually document your candidate user stories for version 1, and some of the section is allocated to present your longer term stories, the user stories. That way we can gather everyone's requirements and everyone's thought process and can actually prioritize what goes into the version 1 and what can be actually put into the backlog of the long-term roadmap. And the second thing that we're trying to do is that we actually have a very active community under network architecture, and a lot of people are coming up with requests to present. You must have seen Tol was also talking about presenting ideas. So people are trying to present lots of ideas, which is actually going to shape the requirement structure of the SIG network architecture group. And all of these presentations are very thorough, very involved, and a lot of excellent work has been done to connect various angles of the requirements into the Nephio. So we have created an agenda tracker where we are inviting the participants to actually put your topic, and we are asking the other community members to vote on those topics. So as me and Kaushik are trying to structure the meetings on a high level to focus first on the short-term requirement and then continue to gather the feedback and inputs on the long-term requirements, we are creating this opportunity for the community members to actually come in and present on our internal SIG architecture meetings, and other community members can also vote on their topics. And I had a little bit of struggle. Coming up with the documentation wasn't difficult, but sharing was kind of a challenge so far, which John and Kaushik has been resolving for us so far by using their Google Suite and their access to be able to share with the community. But it's something that we are still working on. chime in, Kaushik and John, if you have more to add to this.
Yeah, so with respect, two things. One is just, Sana mentioned short-term and long-term. So one thing we're trying to emphasize is that we do need, we obviously we need solid long-term stories, but we're also trying to emphasize an iterative approach, which means setting smaller goals that we can achieve in a short time frame that demonstrate or exercise or surface requirements that will be necessary and needed and functionality that will be needed later, but don't necessarily cover, you know, a real production use case for our very first thing we do. So just keep that in mind as we go through these use cases, that this is an iterative approach and a stackable build on top of each of these pieces. The other point I wanted to make was with respect to the sharing, like logistics there. This is part of SIG release to figure out our tooling, and like we're moved to the Zoom for this call. There's you know, there's other tooling for like the wiki and things, but so we're still, I think SIG release maybe we'll speak to that a little bit shortly, but I did create for all the SIG chairs and vice chairs, I created nephio.org Google Workspace accounts. So any documents, if you create them in there, you will have permission to share them with the world. Whereas many of us, Google included, cannot share documents with the world from our own organizational workspaces, just FYI. With that, if there are no questions, I'll move on to the SIG automation since I'm the one talking about that. In SIG automation, we have, I think we're having.
Hey, John, there is a question. Somebody had a question.
Yeah, this is Vish from Red Hat. So Sana, I know Kaushik had been mentioning about Nephio principles, you know, that he was thinking that we should probably drive to, so that the user stories are in line with those Nephio principles. Is that being tracked as well? Is that something part of the SIGNet architecture that's going to actually have any output there?
Vishwant, absolutely. So there is a document and the draft version is almost reviewed. The document's title is Nephio Principles, User Stories and Requirements. So basically it is stitching the Nephio's user stories back to the goals. And the document is almost complete. Now we'll take an action item and actually make sure that we are able to share that with community today. And same goes for the tracker. We have created the document, but some people are still complaining about not finding the access. So we have to sort it out. And I'll sync up with Kaushik and John after.
Thank you, Sana.
Thanks.
Sana, I had another question on the feedback document. I mean, how was that feedback supposed to be provided? I mean, was it supposed to be mailed to the chairs? And what is the deadline for that?
There's a shared document. And if you look at the document, there are very simple structure, like the company's name, the short-term V1 user stories, and the longer-term user stories. You fill in it so that we can find a lot of response for the V1, and we can consolidate and finalize the version 1 user stories and can lock that. The document is already created. It's on a shared drive. You will find access and you will just go and edit that. So in the deadline is before the next SIG meeting. If you can update that, we will have an opportunity to do a roundtable in which everybody can go and present their inputs for 5 minutes, and that's how we can understand everybody's perspective on the user stories.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, and then the agenda tracker, I think you had shared, but yeah, it's still not accessible, I guess.
Yes, that's right. We spoke yesterday. I will make sure that it's accessible to everyone, EFP today.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, I have a question. So what's the process to add a new user story?
So you can just copy the section of the document. It's a shared document with everybody. So just copy the template section for your company, paste it in, change it to your company name, add your short and long-term user stories listed there, and then we can discuss them in the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. I will do that tomorrow.
John, I think we'll send out an email to the community as well with these instructions so that everybody catches it. I'll take an action item to do that.
We'll probably need, if people are having trouble accessing the document, we'll probably, I don't remember which organization it's created in, we might have to recreate it in the Nephio organization so that everybody can edit it, and then we can put a link in the old document back to that one, which I've had to do a few times with other documents. So we have to sort all that out.
All right, thank
Yes,
you.
and as soon as we're done, we'll share an update with the community so you can go back and access that.
Thank you, Sarah and team. Actually, any other question? I think Kaushik, you are also joined using my name. Like any other thing you want to add before we move to SIG automation?
So one general question. This is Bala. Sorry, someone else is speaking?
Go for it, Bala.
Okay, thanks. So when we look at this, obviously, 3 different SIGs, are we taking a siloed approach, or are we taking a holistic release one goal and accordingly shaping each SIG requirements? Or are we taking it siloedly and then brainstorming on what should be the MVP for first release and then prioritizing the stories in each one of them?
It is not siloed. So if you look at our community document, this is what we agreed on. The SIGNet architecture team would define the use cases. It would provide the guidance to the SIG automation team. And then the SIG automation team would compile the software that is needed to release the release 1. And then we also put some criteria around how we judge that particular release item in the community document. So where TSC get involved to ensure that the quality of the release 1 is actually ensured. The SIG release will take the outcome of the SIG automation, and then they would also add like additional test cases and the validation and putting it into a particular CI/CD pipeline and all the stuff to ensure the code is released. So this is a one sort of missionary to release for the community. So it is not siloed, it's actually all interconnected.
Okay, so
Hopefully
basically everyone has input, but in terms of defining the MVP, network architecture is probably playing a pivotal role, if I understand correctly.
It is pretty much like, I think I would say like, again, I think this is why I said interconnected. The SIG automation can also push back or can actually provide additional feedback to the net architecture team. And I think, the use cases are defined in the SIG net architecture team. But automation team can also provide inputs, release team can also provide inputs. End of the day, I think the community these 3 groups should work together to deliver it along with the TSC.
Got it. That makes sense. So where is the forum where all these 3 get together to define that? Which forum would that be?
This is something that there is, I think we are still in the early stage. I think once the SIG group actually finalize it, and I think the SIG group net architecture team can facilitate a meeting with the SIG automation team. So the chair and vice chair of each of those group can actually coordinate to make that happen. But I don't think so that call has been set up like in a regular cadence. But this is the two or three, all 3 of the teams to sort of like figure out. If there are any help from TSE is needed, we can help that as well. But I think once the SIG team, the net architecture team defines the use cases, then that need to be presented to the automation team. Then they have to officially accept it, saying that, hey, it is what I'm accepting to. Then that's the same thing would happen with the release team as well. So that call need to be facilitated. And I think we are in the step number 1. So what you're asking is like more of a step number 2 or step number 3.
Okay, thanks, Ken.
Sure.
Hey, I'll just quickly state this came up in the SIG ARC. I will, or one of us will help facilitate this recurring meeting with chair and vice chair of all the 3 SIGs. And I think it's not just about helping define the user stories and so forth, but we need a continued dialogue between the 6. We'll help orchestrate that in the coming days.
Thank you. And I think there are 2 more questions. John, please go ahead.
Oh, actually, I'll lower my hand. I was just, you and Kaushik covered everything that I wanted to say.
Okay, so let's go to the SIG automation.
Okay, great. So we're continuing with different community members discussing their thoughts, their proofs of concepts for different aspects of it. So as I see it, I guess this sort of folds into the last question. So SIG automation is going to build a bunch of sort of pieces that are useful to implement variety of use cases, and network architecture is going to figure out what the right use cases are. Obviously, there's a there's an interaction there because there's 1,000 things we could work on, and we're not going to work on all 1,000, but we're just sort of making our best estimates based upon the current draft of user stories and our understanding of what we're trying to deliver to start to experiment with different upstream projects, different proofs of concept around those things. Along those lines, this will evolve into identifying those concrete components that we need to deliver. So still early days here, but we are definitely having good conversations and making progress on toward sort of forming more executable. We're looking for building out an execution plan, but we need to figure out what we need to execute on first. So I see Tal turned his camera on, and if you want to chime in at any point, Tal, just go right ahead. Along these lines, the next meeting next week, we'll have 2 different proof of concept demonstrations. So Sandeep Sharma from Arna has taken the POC that I did a few weeks ago that was on sort of distributing a workload across multiple clusters. And he's extended that so that we can actually create those clusters as part of that automation. So we're starting to look more like the Nephio picture of both automation of workload and cluster creation. So the idea would be the clusters get created and then the workloads get installed on those clusters. So looking forward to seeing that. And then Stephen Wong from Google is going to also demonstrate, I don't know if we'll have time for both of these, but we'll try, is going to demonstrate an example of how you might do a UPF automation of a UPF deployment using both functionality in our management cluster, similar to what the previous demo was showing, that that's part of the management cluster, but also an operator running in the edge cluster to take out over some aspects of it. So it's a shared responsibility to get this thing running between what happens in the management cluster and what happens in the edge cluster. So would love for all of you to come and join the meeting and participate. That's all I've got.
A question, this is Owen Burton from Equinix. Where can I find the user stories and the invites to the SIG automation group?
So the user stories, it's the same user stories that Sana was talking about. Like this Signet Arch is producing the user stories. We have some draft documents we're going to send out. There was a proposal sent out by Kaushik a week or 2 ago as a sort of straw person proposal of here's what we could potentially do. But the community, Signet Arch in particular, has to figure out exactly what's going to be done. What we're looking at in SIG automation is, given the ideas of Nephio, the principles of Nephio, given the types of use cases we know we're going to support, what are the primitives? What are the sort of abstractions we need? What are the pieces of functionality that are likely to be used across many different use cases? And we're trying to further refine the requirements of those. I don't think we have any. I have some documents describing some of that functionality in some upstream communities, but like I don't think we have anything yet specifically other than like the POC type of documents that we've shared in the past.
So Equinix and Arna have a relevant POC here as well that shows the infrastructure, bare metal orchestration, and the interconnection, as well as edge compute and free 5GC deployment end-to-end that we would like to show to the community. How can we do that?
I think, so our process has been pretty informal, that you could just go to the agenda document, which is a Google Doc. You can find the link to it on the wiki or in Slack. And you can just, there's a future agenda items section. You can just put your agenda item there. And then Tal and I, as chairs, would try to, fit people in to the next meeting. If we find that we're getting too many, which would be wonderful, then Sana has the spreadsheet she put out for the agenda tracking for NetArch, and we might replicate that process, which could be helpful. We're sort of letting to see how it goes for that before we jump into it. We've been doing it more informally, but if we have a lot of demonstrations to do or contention, we can also call ad hoc meetings. So we're open to a lot of flexibility.
Thank you. And I was looking at the wiki on the Linux Foundation page. I didn't see any, like, where do I find this, next meeting link?
So the wiki, if you go to the wiki, you go to the SIG automation page, there's a block there that says, it's got the Google group information, the iCal link, the meet link, and the schedule for the meetings.
Okay.
The agenda, more importantly, the link for the agenda. Also on the Slack, I added a bookmark to the agenda, or somebody did.
Yeah, I think just to add to John's point, I created like a Nephio coordinates kind of a thing in Slack general chat. It has links to all the TSC meetings and stuff like that, and we have pinned it. So it's in a general channel in the Slack. It has all the coordinates for all the meetings, wiki, things like that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We do need to, if you have that for this meeting, we probably need to update it because now the Zoom calls, there's a public.
Yeah, I updated that. I updated it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So yeah, I'll just add to John. I mean, that was perfect, John. That's exactly what I would have said. And I'll just add two points. One, we kind of touch base between ourselves to see how we would manage agendas and everything. And yes, we're definitely looser than the ArcSig right now, but it's we can tighten the ship, run a tighter ship if we have to. So
well, I'm looking at the SIG automation page in the wiki. It's blank basically.
Oh, the wiki page? Yeah, we did not do much with the wiki page at this point, but we have our own. We have the agenda document that's quite detailed. So at some point, John, we would probably need to talk about.
Where is it? I'm sorry.
So if you look at the SIG automation wiki page, there's a bunch of links there. Google Group, Wiki, iCal Drive, Agenda, and Notes. Click on the Agenda and Notes.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually, this is unrelated, but we still have the fourth SIG wiki page. I think it can be removed myself, but I'll leave that to the TSC to decide. It just redirects, but I think it's just confusing when you look at the menu. It looks like there are 4 SIGs.
I'll just delete it. I mean, oh no, you can't delete it. Oh, I'm not logged in. I think the TSC already decided the SIG doesn't exist, so we can.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but I think nephio.org is where people go to learn about Nephio, so it still appears there. But we can figure that out.
But it says, I think.
It does link. True. If you click on the page, it does tell you that it links to somewhere else. But somebody just looking at the menu there would see 4 SIGs.
Yeah. But it says one. If you click at it, it says it's merged. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do want to add one more point to what John was saying about our presentation so far, and I think this also applies to SIG architecture, where I think we're at the early stage where a lot of people have stuff to get off their chest, things that they've been thinking on. I think a lot of us have been thinking about Nephio-like things for a while. So we're kind of putting it all out there and trying to share it. If you look at things right now, it doesn't seem like everything is talking to each other very closely, right? You have proposals coming from people. There's some overlaps, of course, but generally people are coming with POCs and proposals from their own point of view and their own work. I think this is fine. That's what I want to say. I think this is totally natural way to evolve. And I think we're going to see, I predict that we're going to see POCs talking to each other a bit more, looking at areas of overlap, and we're going to coalesce into something. So I'm not worried about this. I think this is a very good.
Is absolutely fine.
I'm happy with how things are going. Yeah.
I found the agenda. I'll if you say we can just put in for the next one, that'd be great.
Yeah, I emphasize that everybody exercise self-judgment. Think of will this fit today? Is it better to postpone maybe later if there's something else there? John and I are here to make sure we manage the agenda. Basically, that's our main role. So we you can contact us directly too. People have done that, asking us, hey, can I put myself on the agenda next week or not? But at this point, we don't have quite the problem that SIG architecture has, where we have far too many. So consider it self-serve right now. Everybody can edit the agenda document, add things to themselves. If we see any conflict or any potential problem, we'll talk to people and just smooth it out. So we're doing it kind of informally and loose right now. It's working for now. If it stops working in this informal way and becomes too confusing, then we'll organize a spreadsheet or something like SIG architecture did. But for now, we'd rather not add too much bureaucracy where none is necessary so far.
Yeah, completely understood. Thank you.
I have a question to the SIG automation community and Tal and John. So that's a great point. The essence of open source can truly evolve when you leave it to become a self-evolutionary community in which things can happen without having a bottleneck there. So I love this idea. And of course, eventually it has to become like that. One of the things that Kaushik and I were thinking to structure, we're trying to finalize the requirements for V1. And once we lock a little bit of that, maybe we could move on to a model like more self-evolutionary going forward. But that is dependent on a concept that I believe, as if network architecture group is responsible for providing input to the SIG automation group as well, in trying to steer some of the direction of our development effort. So I'm still trying to understand what is the actual relationship between the two SIGs? Like how do we navigate the mechanics of what we deliver, what is our output, and what becomes the input to some other community? Are we all flowing independently, or is there a producer-consumer model between us?
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely somewhat of a producer-consumer model, right? My mental model, network architecture, you're the product managers. SIG automation, we're the engineering team, and SIG release is what we call it, Google Eng Prod. So like building the tooling and everything to make everybody productive. But that's how I model it in my head. We certainly, as an open source community, and I think I said this a long time ago, which is when we got rid of SIG platform, is everything we do is a rough draft. And Tal and I talked about this. Like we really want to emphasize, like we are evolving as a community, like you just said, Sana. Like if that model's not working, the TSC can sort of juggle things and change the SIGs. But in my mind, there's an interplay between those two SIGs where, in particular, network architecture says we need this and SIG automations as well. Okay, that's great, but how about we do it in this way? Right. So there's a sort of what needs to be done versus how it gets done, and there's a negotiation and a discussion that that's going to happen between the two SIGs.
Yeah.
So John,
Yes.
John and team, Sana and everybody, sorry, I'm interrupting you guys in the middle, but I want to do a time check. There's only 7 minutes. I want to give opportunity to SIG release as well, so that they can actually get their update.
Yeah, we should take it offline on the other SIG chairs internal meeting and hopefully sort some ideas there.
Yes, and if there's a specific proposal you want to bring into the attention of the TSC in this call, please do. And I think you both touched the important point, how the coordination would work, but we can definitely follow up on that. So with that, SIG release team, like, can you guys, like Stephen and Tina, can you please provide an update on the SIG release?
Should be very quick. So we spend most of our efforts coordinating with Kirk on migrating to LF2 that is still going on right now. And then we also started talking to LF folks on enabling CI/CDs. Obviously, we don't really have a code base to hook it up yet, but then given the experience, it may take some time. So we kick off the conversations. Also, we have actually spoken with Lincoln from LF Etched. So we obtained lab spaces already. So I'm in the midst of getting that, and well, the first thing logically to do is to create a Kubernetes clusters and see if we can automate that. But then it seems like V1 possibly that will be in scope. If it is, then it changes the idea a little bit. So we'll see how it goes with the automation SIG. But for now, I would assume it isn't, and I'll try to see what is a good tooling because the basic thing we have to do for any edge nodes that we're able to obtain for lab space, we'll have to create in a Kubernetes clusters. And up until that point, we assume that for V1.0, it's not part of the software. We'll have to do it manually. So I'll operate under that assumption until the scope is clear and it's otherwise being told. That would be part of Nephio 1.0. And that's it for me, but if anything else from Tina?
Right. Yeah, I think it's on track. We've done the resource, the lab resource obtaining, and now we are working for the CI/CD infrastructure setup, including using the tools from LF. So I think Stephen and I, we probably need to have a call with Eric Paul soon. Yeah, that's about it.
Thank you. That's it from SIG release.
Right. So thank you. Appreciate it. Is anything else anybody want to bring up before we draw?
So there is one thing in the agenda I saw was document management. Probably I can put it in the Slack too if somebody has an important topic. Because I was thinking the drives, the individual drives that we have. I think now that we have got the traction and there are contents, probably we may organize structure contents there with some folders. For example, the meeting recordings can go to its separate folder, and the documents can go to its separate folder. So very, very simple thing, but I just want to bring it up because pretty soon it's going to get cluttered if you don't do.
Yes, I totally agree with you, Balaji. And I think, do we have a volunteer from community? Maybe you, given that you brought it up, like, do you like to volunteer to help on that exercise? And
Yes,
I think
yes,
there's another.
I can do that. Do I have edit access, John or Kandan for that?
Yeah, so you can work offline with John and Kurt, and I think they can help you with the edit access. But I also want to point out that we have to do a better job as a community on the wiki page as well. And I think we heard that one time on this call. So anybody volunteering for, beef up with the content on the wiki page, we would welcome that as well.
Yeah, Kandan, I will work with John and Curtis and make sure we'll organize something. Yeah.
Thank you. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
Any other question, any other item that we want to follow up? All right, guys, thank you very much. And I think the immediate action item for before the next TSC call is that to finalize the agenda for the face-to-face meeting that we're going to have in the ONE Summit. So let's provide your input, and then as a TSC, we will actually try to structure it. Then we can call out the agenda so that people can actually book their conference pass, as well as the logistics around travel and other stuff, right? And with that, so I think one more thing, this is a Kurt, I think we should provide a little bit of more information in that wiki page, Kurt, in terms of people have to do registration and any recommendation on hotels or anything like that. So just a reference, I'm pretty sure that the conference website has those details. And I think we should provide some detail there so that people are very clear about where they need to make travel and all this stuff. All right. With that, thank you, everyone, and we will follow up on the next call. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.